Hello, I'm Anthony Hall, Managing Director of Client Relationships at Equinity, and we're here today to talk about the results from the Shareholder Voice survey, specifically around employee share plans and employee engagement. To help me do that, I'm joined by two of my colleagues from Equinity. Hi Jen, hi Ian.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Getting into it, according to our survey, 85% of employee shareholders had a positive experience from participating within an employee share plan, and 75% said it had spurred them on to invest in other companies as well. So what do you think of these findings? Are they what you're seeing from your day-to-day work with companies? Jen?
Absolutely, yes they are. And I've looked through all the statistics and we're able to identify the shareholders who are employee shareholders, and across the board we've had some really positive results that are coming out of the survey, and that does reflect quite a lot of the work that our clients are putting into making sure that their employees become engaged shareholders within the company. And we've seen quite a lot of free share awards being offered by companies to all of their employees, because they really are on board with getting their employees engaged in the company's ambition, and they're really strongly believing in the positive benefits for their colleagues to join into the employee share plans, and I think that's reflected then in the figures.
I think it's great as well. It's a really positive message. So the companies that we work with put a huge amount of resource and time and effort into ensuring that their employees participate in employee share plans, but then also become an engaged employee shareholder. Why do they do it? Well, it's because they want to improve retention, motivation, and retention of employees within the organisation. So it's a really positive message, and it's great that this research is cementing our understanding.
I think that employee share plans now, companies are believing them to be more than just a reward to provide something to their employees. It's much more of a vision that they want their employees to be engaged shareholders as well.
And also, I suppose, as well, creates wealth for the individual, and also financial stability, which again, as an ESG component going forward, that's something that most companies will be looking forward to. It's not just about, as Jennifer said, your weekly, monthly pay that you receive each month.
Yeah, good. And do you think that there's the wealth generation, and the old people who worked in the business longer have more capital they can spare to play into these schemes? But do you think there's also something there about the attitudes to work these days, and the workplace is modern, the economy, the gig economy, Gen Z, completely different viewpoint to the more traditional employees? Has that got something to play here?
Certainly, and the average number of years that an employee, when they first join the company, expects to stay with that company is a lot less than it used to be. And that's reflected in their participation in share plans. Those plans where they last 2-3 years, there's a bigger uptick in the number of participants, younger participants going into the plans than those that are longer plans. And that goes back to the expectations that they won't be there for 5, 6, 7 years. So therefore, what's the point in joining an employee share plan? So it is quite an important thing to be able to put into the communication, the idea that yes, they probably will be there over that period of time. They can still benefit from these plans, even if they don't think at this moment in time that they will be along 3 or 5 years to be able to take that benefit out.
I think there's two ways of looking at this as well. So from an education perspective, it's important that the company actually stresses to the individual, well, here are the benefits, whether it be a tax-approved plan here in the UK or actually the value creation it can bring. But I think the other really key point is companies are actually reacting to this short-term viewpoint of some employees. So whereas the traditional UK Save As You Earn or UK Share Incentive Plan will have to manifest itself in 3 or 5 years further down the line, what we're seeing is companies taking a more short-term viewpoint and granting different types of awards to employees. So utilising a conditional share award as an example, and by utilising a conditional share award, it means that the individual can actually gain access to that free share award, if that's the type of award granted, within a year or even 2 years. And it's up to the company to determine how long that vesting period will actually be. So it gives them more flexibility to actually work towards what their workforce actually represents.
And are you seeing a shift towards that, or do you think there should be a push to change the more established plans, or are you actually seeing more people introducing more of these variable plans?
There's more companies definitely establishing these more variable plans. The industry as a whole is looking to actually see if we can change the viewpoint and reducing down when shares become available under the share incentive plan from tax-free from 5 years to 3 years. And I think some of those real positive changes, if we can enact those as an industry, will really make a difference to participation, employees, and more importantly, as the statistics say, getting more people as engaged employee shareholders in the future.
Yeah.
That is a really important point, trying to encourage more people into the plans, reducing the tax-free periods from 5 years down to 3 years. But one of the other changes as well that we're trying to look into is encouraging and enabling more employees into share plans. And at the moment, there's quite a large group of people who are gig workers who are not defined as employees of the company and therefore can't actually participate in the tax advantage plans. So you can still offer share plans to these group of employees, but not on a tax advantage basis. So that's another thing that would be really interesting if there's a way of extending the plans to encourage, gig workers into these plans as well.
Touching back on that communications piece we're talking about, so there's been a lot of the findings from this research has really been interesting in the change in different demographics, or how it's different between the, as we said, the baby boomers to the Gen Zs. Do you think companies need to change the way they're communicating now, considering their workforce may be more gig economy than it's ever been before, or do you think companies are already doing that? I mean, what's your thoughts around that?
Yeah. At the moment, we can already identify different groups of employees when you come up to putting together the launch documentation, and there is already some work that we carry out so that we can do slightly different messaging for the younger generations as opposed to those who are more mature and have been in the plans already for a longer period of time. And that can help because if the employee can identify with a message that you're putting over, and that message might be slightly different depending on the generational aspect of it, then yeah, that can help, and we do see that at the moment.
And we've seen some companies as well who have a really, really strong brand, which is recognised by their customers. And actually, these companies have now recognised that actually, even though that's a really strong brand externally, actually they need to change the imagery, the terminology, etc. they use internally for their own staff, and actually to ensure that those education points get across to different demographics within the organisation. We saw one company, for example, that changed the corporate imagery, which actually increased their participation in a Save As You Earn by 20%. So by enacting those changes, it really makes a difference and then comes through again to being a shareholder. And I think the financial education piece is really a key point that companies are actually looking at, is how are they actually articulating to a younger generation who may not understand tax efficiencies that actually there is a tax benefit of whether it be capital gains tax on a Save As You Earn scheme or whether it be an income tax saving on a share incentive plan. So all of these points really make a difference on getting individuals to participate, and we're seeing clients enact that more and more.
I think one of the other findings we've come out of this is that 75% of employees said they would hold shares in other companies, and it touches on that point you've just said there about the importance of financial education. So do you think companies will need to change their approach? Do you think that, is there more to be done as a sort of have a responsibility to provide more education beyond the point of maturity or vesting of a share plan, and helping their employees in the world of investments beyond the plan date?
Certainly more work to do, I think. So lots of our clients do offer a really varied number of choices. For example, at the maturity of a Save As You Earn. So that may be offering an ISA, it may be offering an investment account, as well as just selling the shares. More and more companies could offer those additional choices, which then allows individuals to diversify on their investments and then look to just step away from not only the company that they're working for, but actually buy shares in other assets. And we've seen from this research that actually does matter to people. And it's not only making sure they're an engaged employee shareholder, but an engaged shareholder of whatever assets you choose to offer. And some of our clients are also looking at how their employees can actually participate in multi-asset ISAs. So what that effectively means is they may not necessarily be financially savvy enough to pick stock by stock by stock, but they'd actually like to choose a risk profile, and then those investment decisions are made for them.
Okay, thank you.
So in some of the maturity documentation, they do set out all the different choices that an employee has when it comes to maturity, and that includes a lot of the products that Ian's just been talking about. But it's also interesting, as part of that, there's a whole number of companies who do videos or booklets that actually explain exactly what it means to be a shareholder. And I think that then is reflected in the figures, because the figures show that about 89% of the employee shareholders feel that they are fully informed.
That's the final point for me to finish on, is companies have seen the value of engaged employee shareholders all the way through, and that's the reason why they grant these share plans. And actually, by having them participate, companies want employees to have a voice, to have a say, and feel that they're actually making a contribution to the change and to the future benefit of the company. So I think it's really, really important that companies continue to actually not forget about employee shareholders, but actually promote them, and have an engaged employee workforce is much more beneficial to a company.
Yeah. And again, one of the statistics that's quite key in that research is that something like 83% of employees will be checking their share price at least monthly, and about 20% of them are actually checking it daily. So it's just, that's kind of the real evidence that employees are engaged.
They are interested.
And
Yes.
interested, yeah.
Tracking it very closely, make sure the share price goes up. I'm sure.
Indeed.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's been fascinating. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Jen. A load of information here. And also, thank you for listening to this. There's been a lot of statistics we reported here from the Shareholder Voice report. So do download it from equinity.com, where you'll find it and information on all the other sections that we've talked through on these videos. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.